Yeah, don't ask what I have to do to get to this. Like somebody told me early on when I was 25, I think I said, I'm going to give it 2 more years and make it with this rap shit. And then he said to me, well, I'm confused. Isn't this who you are? Is this who you are or isn't it? Because if it's who you are, it's just what you do, no matter what.
Hey everybody, it's Tait, Fletcher, Pirate Life Radio, and welcome. Great show today. Talked to a friend of mine, and I'd been wanting to get him on the podcast for a long time, and he's an old school underground hip-hop giant named Slaine. Goes by George Carrol, been in a ton of movies from Gone Baby Gone, Killing Them Softly, most known probably for The Town. He was just out in the new joint with The Rock, and so I've been stoked about him since I first kind of got wind of him back in the day, listening to La Coka Nostra. Him and Special Teams, and I like a lot of his solo stuff, A World With No Skies, just really dope, raw lyrics, and the life that he's led, and the kind of journey from beginning to end. Old school Boston hip-hop head, lived in New York for a long time, origins of the nickname, how fatherhood has treated him, and where he's going now, and just it's a man that has really grabbed onto life in a different way and just wrote it, and there's no promise of tomorrow, and it's just living fully magically as an artist in this world now, and what that means and what it means into fatherhood now and raising a kid, and really just a beautiful, beautiful soul. So I hope you enjoy it very much. Slaine. And this podcast has been brought to you by those wonderful folks at Caveman Coffee. Special thanks to Lacey and Keith for bringing it all together, and Josh and Moses in the warehouse just killing it and holding it down, and Ricky and all those guys, man. It's just been a tremendous experience to be a part of the growing love and a familial thing that we've met, and when we met Juan and David and teamed up with them, and where we've gone from there has been just second to none as far as the kind of learning process that I've been and being taken under wing by people and shown how to do new things, and it's just one of those things, man. It's a real endeavor into pushing limits and comforts, and here's something we're in love with, and let's go ahead and see where it is, and it really speaks to what my belief is about no matter what you're doing in life, love that thing, and when you learn how to love that thing fully, then that thing can become transferable. That's a transferable skill, to learn how to be in love with things. And not for yourself, but for the growing of the thing. And it's just a fantastic endeavor for us. So please hit up Caveman Coffee. If you like this, podcast, please support all of our sponsors. That being first and foremost, Concrete Cowboy in Dallas, Austin, and Houston. Some fantastic nightclubs that I get to be a part of through my friends Dan and John and Rico. And they run those places, and they're, I mean, it's just a real privilege to be with those guys, and please support out there, and holler at my boy Nolan over there bringing all the green chili in, and holding down the door, and my boys all through there, man, through the Dallas crew and Austin and Houston. I just don't get out enough, and please go hug a doorman and say hello to those guys for me if you're in the area. Concrete Cowboy. You can find them on Instagram, Concrete Cowboy, Austin, Houston, and Dallas. Also, Nuevo Cerveza. It's a little microbrew me and my buddy Marcos put together. And I shouldn't say we put together. Marcos put together, and he and his main number one partner, Melissa, and they just allowed me to ride along. I mean, all the people I meet in my life make my life what it is. We got a great little light Mexican microbrew, and we're starting a little endeavor called Nuevo Cerveza Headquarters in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is like a tap room, coffee house, and internet refuge. If you want to go and just dip out for a while and try some wonderful local beverages and get a cool, chill vibe, hit us up on Instagram at Nuevo Cerveza HQ. And you can find out more about Nuevo Cerveza there, or at Nuevo Cerveza on Instagram. What else is cracking? Deuce Gym, my friends in Venice. Keep my fitness on point. Thank you, Logan, Emily, and also Dr. Matthews for all your fitness and birth fit needs. You check out birthfit.com, check out deucegym.com. Especially, I don't know, Instagram's great, man, but to read Logan's blogs on deucegym.com is really fantastic. And if you want to do yourself a favor every day, check your mindset and get working on a more optimal level. Just retrain your thinking, man, and get good nourishment for the brain. You got to read the dude's words. He's working on a book, too, that I'm super stoked to hear. And you can find him at Functional Coach. So that's at Deuce Gym. Deuce Gym's right on Lincoln. Stop and say hello. We're always in the yard pulling and pushing and moving around heavy weight. Also, Undisputed Fitness. Check them out at undisputedfitness.com. It's my gym in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And Heather and Lorenzo and the crew are holding it down over there. Nate and Wheezy and Ruben are representing 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Santa Fe. And this weekend, actually, they'll be competing in their first professional fight as grapplers, which will be a fantastic... it's a grappling tournament, not a fight. They both already had professional fights, but professional grappling tournament. Fight to Win Promotions, Productions. I'm not sure which. Seth Daniels runs it. Really great dude. Been doing great things in Denver for a long time. You can check out Fight to Win and see their website. Peep all that good stuff. But check us out at undisputedfitness.com. You get updates and links into what we're doing. We're doing a big, undisputedly strong tournament there. It's like a hybrid tournament for strongman and CrossFit together, and they'll be doing that all Saturday. So I'm sitting in Alpena, Michigan right now, and just getting these little odds and ends together to put this out. But I'll be there Saturday. It's Wednesday now, and this will be out probably on Saturday. So check us out, and I think there's a stream that you can hear me commentate that Fight to Win program online. I'm not sure how to do that. You guys probably do. I should be better prepared, but I'm not lovable in all the ways that I am and that I am not. So take it for what it is. What else is going on? So many world events I can't comment on. Goddamn, such deep conversations. Can we believe that it's not a magic trick? I don't. It seems like it's all make-believe. For God's sakes. Goddamn, Donald Trump had a big dick contest for their Republican National Convention. It seems nuts. Hillary is like this close to being impeachment. Like, these are the best people in America. Oh, anyway, let's not start. I'm going to abstain from that, and I'm just going to try to spread love and goodness to the people that are close to me and around me and doing my little part for my community. I think we all do that. The ripple effect goes out when we drown those rats, because that's all that Washington is. Anyway, have I gone on too long? I don't need to talk about this. God bless y'all. Love you. Thank you for being on this ship with me. And it's a real goddamn pleasure to have like-minded people. All your comments that come that say that you're listening and that you like this, it keeps it going and it keeps me going. And I know the guys like Slaine too, man. It keeps him going. It's like we're guys that weren't supposed to end up where we ended up, and we just never stopped trying. And we got fortunate with being able to notice how great the people were around us. I think there's great people everywhere. And for whatever reason, man, the clouds got moved of selfishness from my eyes long enough that I could see that I was real fortunate to be around these people. And thank you all for my life. And thank you all for my perspective. And I love you very much. And let's get to this. I'm going to be off to the next episode of this, and it will feature a naturopathic doctor who's also into neurosciences and is talking about Parkinson's remediation. And she's onto some really big things with the marijuana industry and CBCs and all types of stuff. So if you enjoy this one, please go to the next one, and please like me or rate me on iTunes. Let's get that rating up. Really need help doing that. So the more you can plug that, the better. My YouTube page also, Tait Fletcher. You can check out, I had a great podcast, man. What a good dude Dr. Billy DeMoss is. And so that whole podcast is up on our YouTube too, if you want to see that handsome devil. He looks a lot like Kelly Slater. Anyway, more on all that later. Thanks, y'all, for joining in, and stay solid, man. Keep the eyes on the horizon and keep an open mind on the way there. God knows what kind of travels might come up between here and there. Bless.
A big Tait Fletcher.
Powerful Tait Fletcher
is a real alpha male.
Weightlifter. He's a stuntman.
Movie star. Robust, enthusiastic individual.
He's huge, by the way. He's like a monster person.
One of the sweetest guys I know.
He's bigger than life.
Act
actor,
Entrepreneur,
a fighter.
the jiu-jitsu technician.
He's also bald and he has all these tattoos. He's just a big fucking man.
A man, a myth, a legend.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
What's up, Tait Fletcher, you bad motherfucker?
Tait Fletcher. Tait Fletcher is
Tait Fletcher.
Teddy bear motherfucking Fletcher, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Tait Fletcher, everybody.
The great Tait Fletcher. Tait the animal Fletcher. Tait the savage Fletcher. Always moving. There's no stillness with Tait Fletcher. You will find no dust.
Tait Fletcher's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He just said the word erection.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher's in the fucking house. Tait Fletcher!
Tait really blasts out some serious hardcore truth bombs, and I think you're really going to enjoy it.
All right, man. Dude, George, it's great to have you here, and
Yeah,
I've
man.
been looking forward to this ever since I first saw you. You've been an unknown hero or idol or something, or like I really I know you guys through Danny Boy. I met first, and that was my first really introduction into it, and then through Aaron Banks through Darktooth and BPLA. But I
For the Coka Nostra stuff you talking about.
Yeah. And I wanted to get your background up until then. Like, you grew up in Boston.
Yeah, I was born in Dorchester. I grew up there as a kid, and I moved around quite a bit all around the city in Boston, in and around the city. And the cool thing about Danny is Danny was one of my idols when I was growing up.
No way.
So House of Pain, I'm an Irish kid from Boston. House of Pain, and I love hip hop music. And I see before I ever heard Jump Around or any House of Pain song, I used to smoke a blunt. I worked at the Dana-Farber Cancer Hospital, washing dishes, and I used to get my check for like $114 a week. And I would buy some weed. I'd smoke a blunt, and I'd go into Tower Records, and I'd go through all the magazines and look at the CDs and the tapes. I used to buy tapes because I could buy more than CDs.
Right.
And I remember getting the House of Pain record, and I bought it strictly on aesthetic because it had the Shamrock, and the guys were drinking in the bar room, and they looked like.
And is that like 89, 91? Like,
it was 91.
Yeah.
So and those guys, they looked like guys from my neighborhood. You know what I mean? And then I took the album home and I listened to it and I fell in love with it. The first hip hop show I ever went to was House of Pain in Cypress Hill, and I had the House of Pain posters on my wall. Even years later when I got down with the group, because it was really like House of Pain got back together in a different form.
Coka Nostra was.
Those guys hadn't done anything in years, and then Ill Bill from Nonfiction and myself were, and Ill Bill had an established career, and I was really just hustling mixtapes in the street up until that point. And I had done some cool stuff. I did a group with Edo G and Jason in Boston. We did a single with DJ Premier, but I was pretty much unknown when the Coka hit, and those guys kind of took me on and mentored me. But even early on, when Everlast hadn't done House of Pain songs in a decade, so he would be like, I forget the words on this one, and I would tell him all the lyrics on the songs, because I knew that was like my Bible growing up,
That's
man.
awesome.
Like, that they were really like a heavy inspiration to me. So, fast forward some years, and I had moved to New York City, and I wasn't planning on being an MC. I went to film school at School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. I got kicked out for getting in an altercation with the doorman, and
with the doorman of your building where you're living?
The doorman of the building, and I was drunk. I was going to get some more booze at the store, and we got in an altercation with them and broke his ribs and his jaw and all that, and they ransacked our rooms the next day, and long story short, I had to leave school.
Right.
And but being in New York City, it exposed me to, I just never thought of hip-hop as like a viable option for me, and I started doing open mics. Barbito had an open mic from the Stretch and Barbito show at the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, and I used to go down there and do the open mics. Long story short, I met Danny Boy, and he plugged me in with DJ Lethal. Lethal signed me to a pre-production deal, and some years later that ended up blossoming into me being the young dude that plugged into La Coka Nostra, and
Sick.
things kind of took off from there, and that was like a dream come true, man. I remember being so nervous in the studio the first time when we actually recorded the song "Fuck Tony Montana," and Be Real was in there, and Everlast, and Sick Jackin', and DJ Lethal, and all these guys that used to be on my wall, you know, because I had Cypress Hill and Be Real all over my wall too. And I remember going into the bathroom and splashing water on my face, like, and giving myself a pep talk, like,
this is real.
You belong here. Now go out there and do what you're supposed to do, you know. And
when did Slaine come about? How did that nickname come up?
Well, when I first moved to New York, I didn't really have like an MC name, and you can't give yourself a name,
right?
So. Dudes started calling me John Doe for years. It was like 2 or 3 years. People called me John Doe because, I had like purple. I used to get high all the time and smoke angel dust. I looked like I was dead, so they started calling me John Doe like a joke. And some years went by, and there was a couple John Does that came out. I think Busta Rhymes had a guy with him named John Doe, and Caves from Lords of Brooklyn actually started calling me Slaine, and he drew up a little logo, and he said, I think you should go by this now. And that's how that kind of came to evolution.
And so Danny Boy is 5 years older or something than you?
I think Danny's like
somewhere like
9 years old.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, Danny is one of my best friends. He's a big brother. I had a series of really good things happen in my career to give me a career, but I always say, like, without Danny, none of them would have happened.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing how you meet, like, when everybody's like, how did your life happen? I'm like, I'm just as confused as anybody, and I'm just super, like, all I can say is I've had great folks that have come into my life, man. I've been real fortunate with the love around me, man.
Yeah, and, it's crazy because when I look back at everything, I always like to say I was self-made, and I did this. I did this shit on my own, and really without the help of friends and with people that believed in me, and more specifically, just like the universe. Any of the good things that happened to me really aren't the result of shit that I directly maneuvered. Right. It was usually the shit that I tried to directly maneuver ended up fucking up, and the things that happened seemed like they were meant to be.
I feel like. I was thinking that even like I get like you get a little envious of somebody. You're like, fuck, I tried out for that thing, and then that guy, I'm not there. They don't, and it's. But then I'm like, oh, if that would have happened, this would have never happened, and all that kind of shit happens all the time. And the more I get aware, I look at that thing. Like, there's no self-made, man. Like, everybody's touched and colored my life, and even dudes that I looked up to that I'm like, that beat me down over life, and I'm like. That's a dude. It must be horrible to live in his head, and I'm glad I'm not that. And you make a choice the other way, and I think that's a huge thing too. It's like all these guys, everybody I come in contact with informs me of who I am, and it strengthens a position this way or that way. Whether that's for my values or ethics or like whatever code you live by, you're like, that works out. This is something I die for. Like you get those values in your head from everybody else, or from books or from whatever, but like those kinds of ideas, I think, are the powerful thing.
Yeah, and it's that's a great mentality, and I think the same thing. But sometimes the time when you kind of devastated because you really want a certain opportunity, it doesn't work out.
Yeah,
it's hard to see the big picture. You just feel like, oh man, like.
Yeah. Anymore, I know how blind I am.
Happened,
I go. There's something. I just go. A dude told me one time. He says, "You just do work and you let the universe do the worrying, and like whatever happens, like you're just in the work business, man. You just do the work." And it's hard to keep my head out of it sometimes, but it's easier now though. Like I get so busy doing. Like a dude asked me the other day. He goes, how is it I be successful? How is it that I can make more money? How is it like? And I'm like, it depends what you got to define success first. But then I really think in my heart, man, that it's like being of service. And it's like the more I read from guys that I really look up to, all those guys, any leaders or anybody that's making social change, they're all of being of service to somebody else. And in that service, it's never convenient. They've always got, it's always like, you're like, wow, man, that took from him when he helped like that. And it's like, yeah, that's what happens sometimes.
Well, it's not service if it's convenient.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, man, it's it's a good spot to be in life though when you start seeing things like that, because I I've tried to get things. We all do. You know, we all have. You try to get stuff, and I've had times where I've been successful with that and getting money, and that hasn't always correlated with the times when I've been the best mentally or the happiest. And I just posted something on Facebook today that said, you know, when it comes to friends, I'm a wealthy man.
Yeah.
And that's not something to be, you know, that's not just some hokey shit. That's like, nothing has been better in my life than friendships. When I have good friendships and good relationships with me, whether I have $20 in my pocket or I'm doing really well, you know, friends always carry you through. And when it works the other way. When you're a good friend, you get good friends. And that's something that I've found to be the most important thing that I've gotten in the music business and the music game and all that has been the relationships. Like when I look back at my career thus far, and hopefully there's still a lot of more beautiful stuff to come, but when I look back, it's the friendships that you know.
Yeah, go ahead and buy a good conversation or buy a feeling of connection with somebody. Like, it doesn't exist. I feel like we try to do that with distractions all over. It's like, that's why you see a lot of sad rich people, I think, is like they haven't cracked the code on like, oh no, here's the way to live, man. And I for sure, me too, man. Like, all the people in my life has made that. I mean, that's the thing that kept me alive, right? I would have for sure killed myself without that. Like, because what's the fucking point? It's even like, I remember thinking when I was a little kid, I'm like, if I had $1 million, what would I would think, would you keep it all? And then I was like, well, no, man. In my friends, I was like, well, it'd be better if I gave those guys all $250,000, and then we'd all be rich together. We'd all have money. And I was like, because I thought $1 million was a ton of money, and I was like, then we'd all. But it's like, I never wanted to do. Like, who wants to do well by themselves? Yeah. Like, what is that? You know, you're Donald Trump or something.
Well, yeah, my friend. I mean, you remember there was the huge Powerball, and I guess the Powerball thing is big all the time now. But there
I was in New York when that was going on.
One, and my boy goes, "Yo, you know, let's just." He was like, "Let's go get a bite and talk about what we're gonna do with the money if we win." And I was like, "Look, man, I think it would ruin my life, honestly. Like, you get that much money." Now all your relationships are tainted in the world we live. Now everybody's pitching their business idea to you and looking at you as an opportunity. I go, the first thing I would have to do if I won that Powerball was go off the grid for a while, call a lawyer, bring my family to an undisclosed. That's where my mind goes, at least. Like, I got to go to an undisclosed location and let this shit die down. Get a business manager.
Look, that's exactly what Dave Chappelle did. Right, when he got 50 million or 100 million or whatever it was from Comedy Central for doing the Chappelle show, and then he like, everybody's like, oh, he's gone crazy. He just dipped out to Africa, and he went to Africa and he stayed there and posted up for, I don't know if it was 6 months or a year or something, but he was like, you could not connect with him. And then I saw him interviewed later on Inside the Actor's Studio. There's a great interview with him, and he goes, well, you know, we got to touch on this, Dave. Like, what was that all about? And he goes, you know, he says, everybody said you were crazy. He says, yeah, what a diminishing thing to say about a man, huh? That you're crazy. He says, my kids get to hear that at school. Their dad's crazy, you know? He says, nobody really thinks about the repercussions of that, but there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you can say that's more disparaging to a dude. Like, you just, you know, and anything that he has to say from then isn't valid, and you invalidate the whole human. And he goes, and like Martin Lawrence, you know, you look at him, a brilliant comic, and then he does his thing, whatever, in Burbank or wherever, and everybody goes, oh, he's crazy. And then who's the singer that went on TRL and God, it's not a Whitney Houston, but anyway, and they're like, she's crazy, and he's like, these are all brilliant people. And he says, are they all crazy, these otherwise brilliant, fantastic individuals? Or is there something kind of sick about the capitalism and about that town and about all? And he's like, I just needed Africa. He says, sometimes everybody needs Africa. He says, you get $50 million in your account, you won't believe who calls your phone. And there is that whole thing, you know, where it takes, I think, years to rebound, because then you got to, like, I was working with, one of the big lessons I learned is just watching and like working on Two Guns is where I met him, Denzel Washington, and then an Equalizer. And the thing, I mean, everybody's like, what do you think of this and that about him? And I heard this, and I go, I don't know what it's like to be Denzel Washington. You know, where everybody's looking at you. Can't go to the store. He can't walk into whatever your favorite restaurant is. If you're listening, he can't walk in there. Yeah. But all his guys, they'd been with him for 20 years or 25 years or something. I was like, and that's a dude that knows what time it is. You know what I mean? He's like, these are really, I can completely trust what their motives are. And anybody else, I'm not so sure. And so, like, that whole thing you're talking about your friends, it's like that tight circle, you know, like, who's my picket fence around me? Like, you know, like, that becomes the biggest mirror for me, like, because I don't think right always. And I'm like, hey, man, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about this, you know? And if you don't have people like that you trust, or I always look at dudes like that, too. They're like, oh, yeah, man, that's my oldest friend. I'm like, when'd you meet him? Oh, like 4 years ago. I'm like, that's your old. There's something funny about you then. Like, if you don't have old, good friends, man, you probably a fucked up dude.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's a crazy thing, the world we live in nowadays with the internet the way it is. And you can take these little out of context moments and blow them up. And that defines who a person is. And, you know, especially, you know, I live in Boston still and LA. And I go back and forth. And it's just like, you know, I notice, like, sometimes people can look at you when you're in movies or music or whatever like a commodity or an entity, or like not a real person that really has real feelings and issues going on. And, you know, you see that on the internet a lot, where people, if you look in anybody's YouTube comments,
especially now with the interactivity,
it's just incredible the way that they'll disparage, like you said, some of these brilliant people, but they're human beings. They're not.
There's no other time
when
a fan could reach out and touch somebody so much and have it, you know, like then with Twitter and Instagram, and it's like, that's a crazy thing, man. Like, and I was thinking that too earlier when I was thinking about your career coming up and all that. Like, how'd the internet change all that? Because, like, that's a thing. Like, I remember, like, I'm like, fuck, man, you're a youngster when you started, like, onto this music run, but there's in most places there's no exposure, so you got to go to New York, you got to go where the exposure is, right? And now there's the internet, and you can get
that's what I did. I was on the tail end of that kind of that generation where it went from major labels, and, you know, the internet kind of emerged in the middle of my career. In the beginning of my career, you know, like when I first started dropping stuff was when kind of the music business kind of started tanking and the internet took over everything. And you know, that worked in positive ways in some ways, because, you know, obviously it's easier to reach people. Like the Coka Nostra was purely organic and all done through the internet in the beginning. And you know, that's how we've reached people. I think we got like 1 million plays on the first song we dropped on MySpace in the first 2 days or something like that. It was crazy. Like, you know, could we have done that without that? Probably not. But at the same time, you know, it changed the entire model for business in the music business. People stopped buying records. It went from 14,000 record stores in America to 4 to now I don't.
Good luck finding one.
Yeah, good luck finding one.
I mean, maybe Amoeba, they're still open probably, but that's a different thing.
I mean, I talked to a group of kids who are interested in getting into the music business, about 50 kids, and I asked them what the last record that they bought was. None of them had ever bought a record.
Like, what is a record exactly?
Think about that. Yeah. It's staggering. Like I told you, when I was 15 years old, I used to go to Tower Records every Friday with the money I made from my job, and it was my number one priority besides that, getting that weed first so that I could hang out there. But, you know, I could tell you where the record was recorded, who was on it, who was the engineer,
the liner notes. You're reading you're pouring over all of that. You're hoping for any tidbit into somebody's life. And now you got just a full-on, you know what the inside of everybody's house looks like.
And you know, and that was my entire universe revolved around that. And these kids, I think, like, it still revolves around music, but they don't buy it.
Right.
And the way they consume it is in a totally different way. I don't think they're as interested in who did it, or it's more just fast food nowadays.
I mean, I see DJs like that a lot.
So I've existed in my career has existed in the internet era. So, you know, I think Everlast always used to say to me, man, if you came along in the 90s, you would have made a lot of money, you know. And you know, I've done all right.
Interesting.
I've done all right, but I never got that humongous payday that a lot of the artists in the 90s got.
What and they still get. I mean, what was interesting to me, that there's so much about this that I don't know anything about. That is, like, I just read an article on about iTunes, and there was a dude that was a composer and he made his own music, and he was pissed about iTunes because apparently, you know, you say, okay, I allow them to do this, whatever, just give me the app kind of thing, right? But it sucks up all your music. Like, now on the plane, unless I download from the cloud, I don't get to listen to the music that's on my phone because it's not on my phone. You know, that changed a few years ago. And before that, like with iPods, but with iTunes, they say, the guy said, one of the problems I'm having, like I'll have a rare bootleg of a song, of song X, and then it'll get absorbed into my iTunes off of my hard drive of my old computer as I'm changing and upgrading computers. And then it just goes into a version of song X. Maybe not that bootleg, but the most popular version. He says, my old music that I made, it doesn't recognize it. Right. So it deletes it automatically. And he says, so like you kind of can't own music anymore in a way. It's like iTunes is directing you to like, and that changes things considerably. And in that same thing, they were talking about like before, like 20 years ago, maybe you have 100 favorite artists or less. And now it's like you might have 1,500 or 2,000 because, I mean, the availability for everybody to make music and get music distributed is free and easy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of upsides to it. There's a lot of downsides to it. But, you know, I think the bottom line when we look back at this, and we don't think about it now, but this is all happening so fast with the technology.
Tripping over
50
itself.
years from now, you look back at this is a revolution that's going on right now. Like, you know, we had the Industrial Revolution. This is a technology revolution. From the time, you know, we were kids till now, I mean, I can reach into my pocket and I have a computer that's...
Can you imagine
that
grandmother?
I can talk to my
I look
son,
at old people and I trip.
I can talk to my son 3,000 miles away in real time on a video conference call from my pocket. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's a lot of ramifications to it too. If you want to look at it like we're carrying around
You're switching on
devices,
yourself all the time.
We're entering our thoughts into a database. We're entering our children's pictures, which I don't do, but into a database.
I mean, even right now, they're saying like my phone's sitting right here and it's off. But they're like, it's never off. I was talking to a cop once, a buddy of mine, and he was working with a task force, like a whole, like a state police, FBI, and city police, like a local deal up in northern New Mexico, and they're trafficking heroin dealers and cocaine dealers, and they. And he goes, all these phones, you can't take the battery out of them, we'll listen. He says, even a flip phone, it's off and it's closed. He says, if it's sitting on your console and you're in your car having a conversation, I can hear you like I'm sitting in the back seat.
Absolutely.
He's like, it's right there all the time.
And the camera on your laptop, whether it's on or off.
Crazy.
You know, it's a scary world.
And then you just got to go, well, I used to get hemmed up about that, and then I was like, I guess I'm just living on Front Street then. Don't be ashamed. Like, live right. Don't be ashamed of whatever you're doing. And if you're fucking willing to make a stand for something, then make it and bust a grape if that's what it takes. But, like, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's such a... It's
ever present. You can't avoid it.
It's beyond our control, so you just do your best.
I think that's what Ted Kaczynski was after, right? Like the Unabomber. He was like, this is... I feel like there's guys like that where it just affects their mind so much. They're like... And something snaps, they go crazy, and they're like, I'm just going to send bombs in the mail because fuck technology.
Right.
And he's living in the woods.
Yeah, and that's what he did write about is how dangerous this would be.
I think that's a trip, too, that he did that. He wrote, like, I don't know how long his manifesto was, but it was a fucking book. And he's making a statement, and he wants it to be heard. He probably figures he's going to die. And then you think of something like Tim McVeigh, and he's arrested for one of the biggest tragedies in America on American soil, and I don't know, 4 or 6 years he's kept alive after that. He doesn't say a word. He's got no agenda. He doesn't want... I'm like, what the fuck is all that? Like, it's almost like you're gonna take the fall for this and you're gonna be our scapegoat, or we're gonna kill everybody you know, or something, or like, I don't know what. But I thought that's the weirdest goddamn thing. It doesn't add up at all. He didn't make one statement after that Oklahoma City bombing.
There's a lot of stuff like that, man. There's a lot of stuff like that, and you know, obviously.
And yeah, I only know what they show us, so I don't fucking know.
We're so conditioned to, you know, people, he's crazy. Getting back to that, like, he's crazy.
Right?
He's you know. I forget the word for it when somebody is a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
He's a conspiracy theorist. It's like, well,
how about this?
It's been proven that there's been
Also,
layers and layers of conspiracies for years and years and years.
I don't think that you can say that it's that conspiracy is akin to bullshit if you're going to make fucking charges on people that stick for conspiracy. Like one of my good friends, he got busted for there's no weed, there's no money, there's no cars, there's no houses, there's no nothing. There's hearsay between 3 people, and he does 5 years. And that's a conspiracy charge. Like, so either they're real or they're not. Like, let's stop charging people on it then. How about we get some real cases? Like, I think they did that back in the 90s to get all the RICO guys and all that. So they're like, well, if just people talk about it, that's enough for us. We don't need to have drugs or crime, which is a trip. You get to make up your own narrative about what it is if you're the man in that way. What do you think as far as all that, like what you're showing and all that with what's going on right now in the world? I was fucking gutted the other day, like the 3 more Baton Rouge cops got killed, I guess, hunted and killed. Not just like fucking, it's a trip, man.
It's also confusing to me though, man, because, somebody else mentioned to me the other day that, the Dallas thing now is maybe not true and that they planted it and,
No way.
So it's so hard to take.
All over all the news?
It's so hard to take anything.
I tell you, man, they cut heads off when they started doing that overseas, and people are like, did you see that? Did you see that? I'm like, no, man, I don't watch that stuff. They're like, why not, dude? It's amazing. I'm like, because first, I don't know if it's real. Second, whoever's sending that wants me to feel a certain way. My own little resistance is I'm not going to feel that way about it. And they're so good at fucking movies that that could be fucking done in Roanoke, Virginia, to get a narrative going about what those guys are. But I don't really know what's true, and neither do you.
I mean, exactly, and that's why I've come to a different place in my head with some of these big issues, and I think I have opinions on them, but I don't really know if what I'm being fed. I mean, I have such a distrust for the media that I don't know if what I'm watching is the facts or if it's true. And when I get consumed with it and it gets in my head and I start to think about it all day long, I'm getting consumed with something I have no control over, that I don't know the full story of. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And now I'm consumed with something I can't control. It gets me so off my square.
And then you're frustrated. You feel impotent in life. Like, what can I do anyway?
And maybe that's the purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the purpose of the whole thing. I don't know.
I look at it like that. People are like, well, what do you think this or that? And I was like for sure there's problems and there's racism for sure. And there's all that shit is for real. But at the end of the day, it's like I got to gauge how I feel, what I can do, like what you're saying. Like, what do you got control over? And I'm like, you love the people around you. If fucking somebody tries to do harm to some motherfuckers around me, God help them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. Like, I can be on I'm not on a side. I'm on the side of fucking people not hurting other people. Like, and if somebody's a sick person, like, and I've been that sick person. I've been on the side of in life where I'm like, I don't have any trust for police, and I don't care what happens one way or another, and I'm fucking really grateful that I don't have that in my heart, and I'm not in that spot in my life now, and that tons of my friends are in that line of business and on the front lines, like a bunch of dudes that everybody just wants that kind of that comfort and humanity for each other, like at the end of the day. And I feel like the biggest thing is like what you're talking about is like that spreading fear. Like you can't really find a person you don't like if you took fear out of them. It's like when I really hate a motherfucker, it's because that person is consumed by fear or resentment or something. It's some kind of ego twist, and all I can really do is go, man, I really hope that guy gets well. That's when I'm feeling healthiest. That's what I feel like anyway. That's where I try to gauge it too, But like, I think it's like fighting. Like for me, it's like I heard Randy Couture said one time they were talking about an opponent that had been a legend for a long time, and he goes, I can't control how long he's been training, what he knows, what his skill level is, how fierce he's going to come out. I can't do any of that. Like, none of that stuff behooves me to even think about. I can control my training, my cardiovascular health, my input into my body nutritionally. So I just go back and I control the things that I can, just to like what you're saying. It's like, I'm not going to play. That's a game they want me to play. I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to mind my thing.
And that's, that's the basics right there. It's what's around you, because so much of the stuff they want to put us in fear about is stuff that's over here or over there, or it's in the future, or it's in the past, or whatever it is. But you know, if we take care of the stuff that's right here, right now in front of us, the people that are around us, the people that we love, you know, I seem to do all right in those situations.
Yeah. Well, and that's all at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is level my fucking mind frame out. Like, because if I go imbalance this way or that way, it's no good for me or anybody. And that's my business. I posted a thing the other day, like, there's like a Calvin and Hobbes thing. Like, I used to think like, hey, just take care of me and I'll take care of you. And now I think, here's our deal. We'll be friends, and I'll take care of me, and I'll keep myself as healthy as I can, and you take care of you, and that's what we'll do for each other. We'll take care of ourselves, you know, because that's what you do. You know, it's like, it's the worst thing ever, whether you're watching like an addict or whether you're watching somebody eat themselves till they're 800 pounds or whatever. It's like, no, man, if people love you, you got a deal. You got a responsibility to fucking take care of yourself to the best of your ability and get as well as you can. You just do, man. That's what love is. That's what love is, I think. You know, you got to start there anyway, because otherwise you're kind of a terrorist, and fuck, I don't need to be a terrorist anymore.
Yeah, you got to start with yourself. If you're not healthy, and you know, if you're living in fear and anger, and you know, just consumed with all the stuff we're talking about, we're being fed with the television, the internet, nonstop. We're being brutalized.
I mean, all these billboards.
Yeah, with the consumerism, and you need to get this to be okay, and you got to buy this to be this kind of person, and you need to look like this to be this kind of person.
That whole pharmacological piece, like, you might need this pill, and then you're going to need this pill to counteract that. Like, that whole thing that, like, we're born into sickness and that we need that to be well, the kind of thing is a fucking what a trick. We get all these tricks, man.
We don't need any of it.
You got to watch the tricks. How did money change? How do you make money as an artist when everything's free on the internet?
You do it with merch and with touring, and
it's all touring, right?
Touring, merch, appearances. You know, for me, I do the acting and I do the music, and you know, there are some years where the acting does better than the music, and there's some years where the music does better than the acting. The music is definitely my bread and butter. I can control it a little more. You know, I don't need somebody to give me an opportunity with music. That's one of the beauties of the internet, is that I have a direct line to my fan base, and I can let them know what's going on with me, and I can promote my projects directly to them, and you know, I have more control over it. With the acting stuff, you know, I don't have millions of dollars to say I'm going to go make this movie now,
right?
And to create my own opportunities. So, you know, it's a little bit more of a...
Well, and it's not kind of like, I mean, I don't know, for me, like the position I'm in, it's like, people are like, oh, you should do this in something or something. I'm like, I don't get to make those choices, man. I'm just happy to get invited to the party. Like, that's where I'm at, man.
No doubt, man. And, you know, you just come with your A game, and if it matches up with what they're looking for and your interpretation of what, you know, then it is what it is, and you're really out of control. I think a lot of people don't understand that. People say the same things.
This one. What's that, brother? Does this place sell burgers? No, sir. They're not open till later tonight. We're just recording a little something for some friends. You wouldn't be able to help American Soldier get a burger, would you? Sure, just a second. Oh, sorry about that. I should have said this before. There's a guy that just asked for directions, but we're on Sunset Strip Boulevard. We're at the Comedy Store right now on the patio. That's why there's a lot of ambient noise and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think some people think like we get to make the call, like you should go and do this kind of role, or you should do this. And the reality is, you know, I would love to do all sorts of different kinds of roles, but you know, the best I could do is to prove myself in each one as it comes, and to do the best I can and work on my craft. And hope to open doors up for myself to play different kinds of roles.
And build out of the thing, like instead of just being the musician guy. Like whenever I think you're good at something else and you come into that thing, they're like, oh, well, he's that guy. Or he's this, you know, oh, he's the fighter guy. We'll put him in that, or whatever the thing is, you know. It's like you're already bucking out. Like you got to shake that old shit off you before you can move in or even get a chance sometimes, I think.
Yeah, it's funny because for a creative industry, there's very few people that have much imagination.
None at all. They go in and I go. I told a friend, you worked on. There was a movie where you get blown up by a car.
Yeah, Killing Them Softly.
So my friend Darren Prescott and Wade Allen, they were the stunt coordinators on that.
Okay.
And so I saw that clip before that came out, and so anyway, Darren, man, he was like assistant or second unit director on John Wick and stuff. Like he does a lot of second unit directing too. And I go, man, I just don't know what they want. Sometimes I go in there and talking about audition rooms and everything. He gave me the best advice. He goes, Tait, they don't know what they want. He's like, you just go in there and give them you full on, and either they'll like it or they're not. And it might even if it's nothing that fits what that role is or what that thing is, they might go, oh my God, that's the guy for like. They said, you know, and that becomes the thing. He's like, they don't even know what they're looking for, and they don't have any creativity. They'll never look at you and be like, oh, well, we could put a beard on that guy, or we could shave that guy, or his hair could be purple. Like, They don't have any creativity. He says, you go in there and you show them what you want, but like that becomes the thing, and then after that, it's like it ain't personal. It's just what it is.
I mean, and you can kill something in an audition too, but there's so many factors that are out of your control. Like, how tall is the lead? How big do you need to look next to him?
Yeah.
You know, it really, there's a million of those factors where you really have no idea
at all.
You know, and sometimes you're the perfect right guy for that part at the time, and I've had that experience too.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing comes down to like trying. It's like the only thing that like my life ain't marked by a ton of successes, but what it is marked by, you can't deny, is that I just try every day. I get like, it's like, and put it out there and try. It's like I just went and did this audition day, and I'm like, I don't know, like I don't even think that I'm the best guy for it, or that I actually sent it to the guy that wrote it. I go, hey man, here's a friend of mine. I think he's really better for this than me, and like, oh well, we love him too, but really like whatever. And I'm like, I'm not attached to it, but I'm attached to doing the work. I'm like, I want to get in the room and I want to practice, and I feel like it's like anything else. The more I practice, the better I get. When the right thing comes, then I'll be a motherfucker for that. I'll be undeniable, you know? Right. That's where I want to get to with it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I enjoy the work. You know, like, I don't look back. We were talking earlier about the money. When I'm looking back at all these experiences, I never think about what the money was.
Right.
I always think about what it was like on set, who I was working with, what we did after, how I prepared for the role, you know, and those are the things that mean something, man.
And it's easier. Like I was thinking today before that, I was like, it's easier if I go in and I don't have a lot on it. My job is take care of what I can take care of. Know the material down pat. Be in there and then throw it away and then just be you. But like, I have control over that. So all the other stuff, fuck it, just go have fun, like, and do the thing.
Yeah.
You ever write? You ever write like scenes and you're like, I'd like to, because I feel like that's what goes is creation.
I actually used to before I ever got into acting, you know, because I got into acting accidentally. I wasn't pursuing it or anything. So when the Coka got together, so I had a guy from the street bankrolling me, and he got in some trouble with the law, and he had moved me into a giant warehouse in Roxbury, and which is a section of Boston, and so I'm in this 800 square foot warehouse, and he got pinched, and he's facing time, and the bills stopped getting paid there. We were going to build a recording studio in there, we had an after hours in there and all this stuff. So I ended up in that place for 8 months. The hot water got turned off, the electricity got turned off, and I'm in there for 8 months like that. And at that time, the Coka started to materialize. I had been selling a lot of mixtapes in the street in Boston, but I hadn't been making enough money off music yet. And the Boston Herald ran a story about me and about the Coka Nostra getting together. I had a picture of me, and Ben Affleck was in town at that time casting for his first movie, Gone Baby Gone. He read my backstory in the article, and I woke up, I was charging my phone overnight at the after hours every night at the bar room up the street that had shut down, sold its liquor license, but it was still up and running.
Right.
And I woke up, I stopped, and I got the newspapers first at the gas station. I bought a big stack of them. I was sleeping up in this mattress on this perch that I had to climb up a ladder to sleep on, and I kicked the ladder down after I walked up in case anybody came in or whatever. And I remember just passing out drunk after reading the newspaper article. And when I woke up, I had 66 missed phone calls. And everybody was calling me. I saw you in the paper, everyone that knew me. But it was also a lot of calls from the Carrol and Pickman's office, a casting agency that was casting the movie, and different media outlets, and the Herald and the Globe, and Ben Affleck was trying to get in touch with me, and
can't find this guy.
Yeah, and here it is. I'm waking up at 4:00 in the afternoon, and
I've been busy all day.
I call over. Hey, can you come in? We've been trying to get in touch with you.
I work in a time. I'm not sure.
I can come in tomorrow.
That's awesome.
So and I didn't just get the part like that. I auditioned for it about 5 times. And I was convinced I didn't have it. I think Ben had to do some finagling on his end because I'm just some dude off the street who's never been in anything.
Right.
And about a month after I auditioned 5 times over the course of a month, another month goes by, and I was out here in L.A. recording with DJ Lethal, and I got the call offering me the part. And I remember Lethal and I drove into Hollywood, and he ran into the bank machine. I looked up at the sky and I started crying because it felt like my life was really changing. That was when I was in the studio doing Fuck Tony with all those guys, and then I got offered this movie part, and I had been struggling, man. I was I was soaping myself up and then getting under that cold water. It's different like if you have hot water and then you turn the water cold.
It. Yeah.
When there's literally no heat being applied to that water, it's freezing. So I had these rashes all down my body from the dried up soap and stuff because I couldn't rinse it off enough. And, it was, and I was really struggling at that time, man. And that was one of those things I'm talking about where that, like, a force beyond my control put those things in my life, and it really rescued me out of a time in my life where I was not headed in a good direction.
Yeah. It kind of forces you to show up in a bigger way. It's like, oh, okay. And it's cool, too, because sometimes all you need is that little flicker of hope that goes, okay, now it's time to dig in. Something's really possible. Like that thing when somebody gives you the ball and you're like, it's mine to lose now. You know what I mean? I can never say I just never got a shot, kind of deal. It's a trip, man. Those are like man maker moments, I feel like, where it's like, you want to be Peter Pan forever, or are you going to we're going to mature right now today. It's going to happen today. You're going to show up and you're going to be on time and you're going to be accountable. And like all that shit, I always felt like I don't want any of that, man, because I'm going to let you down is always how I always felt. And then it wasn't until years later, it wasn't until a few years ago where I felt like, no, that's freedom. There's freedom in all that. There's freedom in being prepared and being accountable and having people be able to trust you and being responsible. Like there's freedom in that, man. Because then you don't feel undone. There's not like a loose end out in the universe where you're like, fuck, I need to clean that up. Oh shit, I gotta go talk to that guy. Like there's none of that. And if none of that exists, that gives creativity a place to grow. I feel like it's like it gives you fertile soil inside. Yeah. Where do you find your best, like your writing comes? Because your life has been super different, like from the time you started till now. And like I always look at I look at like an artist like Jay-Z or something like that, and look at like he's got all this material that's like street material that goes, and then it's like how do you stay relevant in the hip hop world 20 years in?
Well, that's interesting because I have been tackling this because so much of my stuff early on was about active addiction and drinking and celebrating it and reveling in it, but also experiencing tremendous pain and loss and misery and losing friends and just being a part of being a part of the streets and all the shit that goes along with that. And my life has changed so much. That was 10 years ago that La Coka formed, and Ben saw me in the newspaper, and my life changed miraculously. I got married to my high school sweetheart. After we got back together, we had a beautiful baby boy. I went through a divorce, but and I've been all around the world. I've been to 40 countries touring. I've done 10 movies since, and my life has just changed immensely. So if I was still rapping the same way as I was, it wouldn't be the truth. And like when I got sober 2.5 years ago and I was having a hard time writing, and I'm like, well, I can't write without the drugs, without the alcohol. I can't do it. And the reality is I was trying to write. I was like, I don't want to write about like what I'm going through now. The sobriety shit is like corny, or it's. But I didn't want to make that record. I wanted to prove to people that I was still me.
Can still be hard.
I still had my edge, and I had a difficult time writing, and I had to look at it and be like, well, what's the difference? Why could I used to dial up 3 songs a night. Now the difference besides the cocaine and the alcohol was, is that I always wrote what I was going through right in that moment. I wrote how I felt and my view of the world at that moment, and everything that I was going through directly. I got so accustomed to writing like that I never wrote anything before the studio, always write in the studio. And I've had to change my process, man. But the one thing that I can't change is I have to write what I'm going through right now, for better or worse. That's my truth.
Is your editing different then? Like you're saying, your process changed? Like,
I'm infinitely more difficult on myself. Yeah. And that's part of this. Something that I have in my mind that maybe was satiated by the booze and stuff is I'm so hard on myself. Like I recorded, there was an instance about it 8-9 months ago. I was in the studio and I'm recording a song and let me get it again, bring it back, maybe like 16, 17 times. And finally I laid the verse, I slammed the headphones down, I grabbed my backpack, I left the studio, and everybody just kind of left me alone. I got in the car, I'm driving home, and the engineer says, or my producer says, check your email. And the song is in the email, untouched, just the way I recorded it. And I had about a half an hour away from it, and I played it, and it was fucking amazing. Now, this is something I thought that sucked. Right. I hated it so much that I stormed out of the studio because I couldn't get it right. And then I got a little space from it, a little distance from it, and I realized, wow, that's actually really dope.
It's a crazy way the mind fucks you up. Like the way, like I think about that with words even. Like if you think about like banana, and you just say banana, and you're like, is that even a word? Like, wait, is that right? Is that like, how does that like really the choir is a word or whatever? Like fucking you look at things under too much scrutiny, and it just all becomes mud, kind of like it's unintelligible. Yeah. And then you get away from it. Like that's what I do that with my mind too. A dude told me, he says, dude, you can't see all of your character. And he says, I need you to anytime somebody says something critical of you, I need you to assume that it's true, look at where he's right in that, and don't have a defensive response for at least 24 hours. Just look at where anybody can be right about, and whether they're angry with you or love you or whatever. And that, like, it helps open me up a lot now and to possibility, because he goes, at the end of the day, don't you want to get better? If he's 1% right, Tait, and you can get 1% better, isn't that worth a day of looking at it? And it's like, and my mom used to help me with schoolwork when I was a kid, and she would be like, if we'd write an essay or something, she's like, now we leave it for a day and we look at it and then we edit it and see if it's good. And it's a trip what like time and space will do to like your perception, I guess, Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I have that too. Like I'll start writing a verse and then I'll be like, this sucks. And then it's still in my phone. I write a lot of stuff in my phone now. And then months later, I'll be going through and go, this isn't that bad. And then I'll continue it, and it ends up being a good piece, man. So, I mean, writing, I think that's just the mind. Like, we criticize ourselves, and maybe that's what makes it good sometimes, is that it's been overanalyzed. But maybe sometimes it's because it just flows freely.
Right.
And I've had both experiences, and there's not one way that something comes out dope. There's a million different ways that something can.
Yeah.
But the key ingredient always has to be truth.
Well, I think that's the true wherever we are, right? It's like, I mean, and whether like that's technology peeking over your shoulder, or whether that's with art or with how you raise a child, maybe I would think it's that same way. It's like, it's got to have authenticity. It's got to be raw and true, because otherwise you don't recognize it. It's like saying to a kid, well, you'll understand when you're older. It's like, well, that's some bullshit, and that just means you don't understand it right now enough to be able to tell. Like, it's like, if the questions are out there, let's explore them, kind of thing. Yeah. And any other answer, it seems like isn't very powerful or potent, How's fatherhood changed you in that way? Do you
It's funny because I just thought of a story.
More of a censor now?
Well, that's a different issue. Yeah, I'm afraid in some ways, because I've always been like, look, this is who I am. I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks about my shit, until I became a father. And now my son will be 8 years old in September. I know those YouTube searches are a couple of years away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there, and I got a lot of
And if you don't find it, one of his friends will.
I got a lot of splaining to do, you know? Stuff that I probably wouldn't have to I wouldn't have to broach certain topics early on without that stuff. And, you know, but I think I got to look at it like that same force that, you know, puts opportunities in or puts whatever it puts in my life in, has that stuff there for a reason. And you know, like, it is my truth. And I don't want to explain some of the really adult stuff to my son at a young age. I hope I don't have to, but I will when the time comes. And when the time comes, it's not up to me. There's a different power at work there that's going to tell me when I have to talk about that. But, you know, getting back to what you said, like, you said something about, you'll understand when you get older. And I almost found myself in that position last week with my son, because I was supposed to spend all of July in Boston. And I had an opportunity that I had to come out here for briefly. I go back to Boston tomorrow. And he said, Dad, you know, I was home for 2 weeks and throwing him batting practice every day, hanging out with him every day. And he said, Dad, you said you were going to be home for all of July. And I said, you know, we're out here in the backyard, right? And I'm throwing you 200 batting practice pitches a day. And I go, you know, a lot of the other kids, when you get up in those games, like, the only time they're hitting those pitches is when they get up in the game. And I said, and you're better, and you're a better hitter. And the reason you're a better hitter is because you're out here practicing every day. And I go, you love baseball, right? He goes, yeah. He wants to be a baseball player when he grows up. I did too when I was 7. But,
Killer.
you know, but he says, I said, so if you got a shot at the big leagues, I go, if you had a shot at the big leagues, would you take that shot? And he goes, yeah. I go, well, listen, I love you. I want to spend every day with you. I want to spend every minute with you. I go, but I got to make a living, and I got a shot at the big leagues. I go, so Daddy's going to go out there and do what I got to do, and then I'm going to come back to you. We're going to continue with this. I talk to you every day. I let him know I love him no matter where I am on the planet. I wish I could be with him every day. It's the hardest thing about this gig, man.
What did he think about? How did he receive that?
He got that, you know, and it was like, because I wanted to tell him, you'll understand a little more when you get older, and he just wanted to go back to swinging the bat.
He didn't need to.
He wanted to go back to swinging the bat.
My sister's got a little one. He's like 7 years old, and she's just getting split up with her husband, and they're amicable and all that. But she said, you know, we're up, and he says, Mommy, so is Daddy gonna have another house? Where are we gonna live? Who's gonna live in our house here? And she says, well, you and I are going to live here. He goes, okay. And she's nervous. Like, it's a tough talk, you know? And she goes, well, what about Daddy's house? Can I go stay with him sometimes, too, at his house? She goes, yeah, sure. And then he loves to go out to dinner whenever they can go to, and he goes, can we go out to dinner sometimes? And she says, yeah, we'll all go out to get dinners. It'll still be like that. And he goes, okay, well, good night. And, like, he doesn't need long explanations. He's got, like, a few bases he needs covered. And he's like, oh, okay, no, I get that, cool. And then it's like all the other talk is like becomes so whimsical that it's like a little kid's not going to understand that. You don't believe in it, but just if you tell him what's what, it seems like that's fucking the way. I mean, I learned a lot out of that little kid, man.
Yeah, man. Kids, I mean, fatherhood changed me. It saved my life 100%.
What do you think as far as that? I chat with dudes about this a lot because it seems like it comes up a lot, and like I just learned this new term, millennials, and about kind of like people that are, you know, born after year 2000 that kind of don't think maybe there's a sense of entitlement and like a real kind of weird social justice of unaccountability, but I'm going to bitch on the internet a lot kind of thing, and there's all that kind of, and the idea that there's like not really any rites of passage, you know. One of my friends, he's like, you know, the problem is it's too easy to get food. When it's a little harder to live, people are a little more real and they're a little more gracious with each other, and they fucking put in work a little bit better. But now it's just super simple to do all that. And then I was talking about this with Greg Jackson, my old coach, and a couple of guys I used to train with, and they, you know, I was like, we kind of build in our rites of passage through combat and through things like that, and like. And you through you know, a lot of stuff in your past, and and like, how do you do that in a healthy way with kids to where there's accountability, consequences, hard work just for the sake of working hard, a sense of brotherhood? Like, it seems like that's a tough egg to crack in a way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff has naturally been taken away, and you know, I notice it like this, and I think this is I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a, you know, when I was my son's age, I had already been in 100 fights. I had been 100 fist fights at least by the time, you know, we fought every day when we were kids. I got my ass kicked by the older kids. I fought, you know, and I got bullied and beat on, and you know, and all that. And you know, my son's never been in a fight, you know, and I don't know if that's a product of him growing up better. I think it's a good thing. I'm glad he didn't have the same experience as me, because it was traumatic. But in a certain way, that kind of gave me something that made me who I am. It made me learn to keep getting up, and you know, that I had to keep pushing forward. I had to learn how to survive. It was literally survival. You know, I had to survive. I had to learn survival, and it's, as a parent, it's kind of a delicate thing, because I don't want my son to grow up like that. I don't want him to feel that way. And
that'd be the hard part about being a parent, I think.
It's
I don't want him to skin his knees. I want to hold him from not falling down.
You want to protect him.
But then he never learns how to stand up.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you want to give them the best life you can possible. But sometimes the things that make us become who we are the hardest things. I mean, everything that made me who I am has been the most difficult things.
And how much of it is right close to death? You know, like a lot of it is like, when you look at it like that and you get super real and you're like, yeah, that, and then that becomes a thing too. Anymore I look at it, I'm like, some people got to die. Like that also fucking happens, and it's a weird thing, like to try to control life, and it's like to mute it down in a way. That thing about getting fucked up at school and get beat up, and now not only the beating's not necessarily the worst part. Now you got to show up to school the next day too.
Oh, that's absolutely
and so
the worst part.
And so then you're facing all of that stuff. And what's your character like now under these conditions? And I think that thing about who are you now when your ego's broken down and you're nothing. Who are you? Who do you show up as? And I feel like those are the fucking most formative parts of my life.
Well, I've said this to somebody before, you know, like I legitimately thought, when addressing the issue of like, what are my fears? I legitimately thought maybe 5 or 6 years ago, like, well, I don't have any fear, because I equated fear. Now, I probably knew deep down that wasn't true, but I equated fear with one question: when it's time to fight,
are you going to get
fight,
it? Yeah.
Or do you run? And if you know you're going to lose, do you fight or do you run? And my answer was, I always fought, and I lost a lot of fights too. You know,
if you're there with 3 of your friends and 8 football players come up, are you?
But the thing is,
like, take a beating until they get tired.
I took plenty of beatings, but the thing is, I thought like, well, I don't have fear because I will stay and fight those fights. What I didn't realize was, actually, I'm so afraid of what other people will say about me if I bounce.
That's so funny, huh?
That I would rather take a bat to the head.
Yeah.
Than bounce out of there in a common sense situation. Like, yeah, there's 3 dudes right here and you're cornered. Like, you know, I'd rather take the bat to the head than be called a punk.
Yeah.
That's fear too.
Sure.
You know?
But I'm not thinking it's wrong either. But I feel you. I know what you mean, man. Yeah. So you leave in the morning?
Well,
or tomorrow
for the afternoon. I hate going to the airport first thing in the morning, man.
Yeah.
So packed.
Like anytime afternoon is cool. Between noon and 4, that's my sweet spot at the airport.
I like the red eye.
But then if I'm going to go back east, it's all that, because then I can sleep. You got to fly first class. You probably got your own plane by now.
Nah. I wish I flew first class all the time. In fact, I got used to flying first class for a little while, and now I'm back in the coach, and the best I'd go up to is extra comfort, because otherwise I'm paying out the nose. I fly so much back and forth.
A $300 flight becomes $1,200 in a heartbeat.
Oh, even more. $2,100 is the same, you know, instead of $400 or something like that.
Are you? So do you still keep in contact with like Affleck and all that?
Yeah, I do.
That's cool.
I do.
It's cool, man. It's a crazy world how it all opened up and interweaves, and I remember thinking a lot when I was in New Mexico still, and especially I'd see guys, and I was like, I don't think I'm very good, but I know I'm better than that dude. you know, and I would look at shit like that because I would see people that were in these elevated places. I'm like, what's the difference? I'm like, they just showed up. And like that whole thing is just suiting up and showing up and doing the work regardless. I'm like, that fucking pays dividends, man. Like that.
Absolutely.
Like that became the whole thing. And like, I get it. Like I mean, you got your kid back east and all that, but that back and forth, or like when people are like, well, what do you do? Like, I got a bunch of different jobs, right? And I'm like, I do what it takes. Like, and so it's whatever it is before that, I'll do what it takes to get that thing done. Like whatever the fuck it is, man.
Yeah, don't ask what I have to do to get to this, you know, like somebody told me early on when I was 25, I think I said, you know, I'm going to give it 2 more years and make it with this rap shit. Right. And then he said to me, well, I'm confused. Isn't this who you are?
Right. What's make it mean?
Is this who you are or isn't it? Because if it's who you are, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
No matter what,
yeah.
This is what you do. You write, you record, like you're an artist. This is what you do.
Yeah.
You tell stories.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought about that long and hard, and then I put down the artificial deadline, and I've never had one since. And I don't ask like what I have to do to get to a certain destination I'm going. I just go back and forth as needed. I go and I spend time with my son. I come out here, I put the work in. I go on tour. I do whatever I have to do, and I just do the thing that's in front of me that day. And I try to, you know. When I look at the whole picture, I'm so blessed, man. Like, I've put out a lot of records. I've done a lot of work. I feel like I'm just really, like, honing my craft and getting better and better at everything that I'm doing. I'm enjoying it. And I can still walk down the street. I still have people that follow my work.
And you get love, but it's just enough. It's not too, like, it's not weird.
It's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, and I'd be dishonest if I said like there weren't times where I'm like, oh, I wish I could get this or get this bigger or get that bigger. And, you know, really I'm right where I'm supposed to be, man. And, you know, somebody said, you know, you've had a lot of success to me. Right. Somebody said that recently and asked me a question based on that. But I really like have failed far more than
I know. I always shake my head. They're like, congrats on all your success. I'm like, I'm over here just trying to keep my head above water, dog. Like, I'm not looking like, and I used to look at it different. I was like in 5th grade, I remember, I wonder what retiring would be like. It'd be great to have just money to, and now I just look at all the shit and I'm just excited about life. And I'm like, man, there ain't no retiring. And also, like, I need to work, man. Like,
yeah, me too.
I got to keep going. Like,
I got to do it to get to pay the bills and to get booked the flights and to take care of my son and all that, man.
And no matter what it is, they're all like that. Everybody need to work. Like, I remember looking at in that movie. There's Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig in Cowboys versus Aliens is what it was. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Daniel Craig has come up so much that he's got heading above Harrison Ford, who's fucking Han Solo, goddammit, or whatever, you know? And I remember looking at that and I go, it doesn't matter what the fucking paychecks are. Harrison Ford's looking for his next job. It's like everybody, like in the business that I've been in, whether it's in fighting or here or fucking being an entrepreneur or anything, like, it's like I got to shake my own tree, and like there's no check coming at the end of the week unless I produce a check. Like, and it's the same for him. Like, when you're in that thing, everybody's like, oh, I'd like to be able to do that. I'm like, maybe you would, but if you're comfortable getting that check at the end of the week, you might not be fit to do that shit, because it can be a thing where it's like kind of daunting, you know, where you're going, I wonder how I'm going to pay the cell phone bill this, you know, like, and I haven't been there in a minute, but like, it's like, that's right there. Like any of that, whenever I see like that homeless dude that came up to this, I'm like, I'm a good injury away from being right there or whatever. Like, anything can happen, man. And I've never felt comfortable in my place, and I've never been a super fan of me, so I always try to get better, I guess, is the thing, you know. I've always craved that. And I always kind of built my life on that like old punk rock axiom of satisfaction is the death of desire. Right. You know, like, I never wanted to kill my desire. I was never going to be satisfied with anything. I would always look, even if something looked like a success, I'd be like, where could I have done that better, more efficiently or whatever? And I just, like, that became a craving for mine. I'm like, I want to be a high operating.
Would you say you've had at least a dozen failures, if not more, maybe 100 failures for every one success you have?
Dude, everything, man. Even like stuff that people look at as successes, I'm like, all I did was fail in front of a lot of people. Yeah. You know what I mean? I look at, like, fuck, I've been knocked out in front of fucking hundreds of thousands of people. Like, it's like, that's a crazy thing. Like, you got your lights turned out conscious. Like, that's not a success. And then people are like, just glad you were there. And that's like, all right. Like, it's a trip, man. Yeah, I just get up and I just thank you for the opportunity to fail. Thanks for letting me try. And the idea, I think, of failure is like definitions, right? It's like the definition is fuck because it has a negative connotation, and the failure is like, I mean, just because you give it 100%, that's not a guarantee. It's a guarantee of a result. But like right now, I got like a coffee company too, like me and a couple friends do, and we've been building it for like 3 years now. And maybe it blows up into like fucking national coverage everywhere or whatever, and maybe not. But either way, it's like something that I've gained something from. I've become a better, like my person has gotten better. Like this body I walk around with has gotten better at and more adept at things, and I know more had I not done that, you know. And I feel like I look at it more like that. Like even the failures are good shots in a way, you know.
Absolutely. It's all, I mean, the successes are built on the failures.
Yeah.
It's all built on it.
Yeah.
We don't publicize the failures.
Yeah.
You know, like when I tell my story about, you know, how did the Coka Nostra come about and how I got into the,
right.
how Affleck saw me in the paper. I'm not talking about the 10 years of failing that took place before that. The every day getting back up and going, I'm going to go get him today. I'm going to go get him today. And like, how that ended up getting me in the newspaper for Affleck to see me. Like, we don't talk about that. And then people can say, like, well, you just had, like, a stroke of luck there. He saw you in the newspaper.
And then they say, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
They're like, all of a sudden, you know, then you're just, I'm like, yeah, that just is all of a sudden. And to me, it's like, that's what real faith is. Like, a lot of the religious folks will talk about faith and they don't have any of it. Like, a lot of that, like, what faith is like, I'm going to get up and try, even though I don't have any, like guarantees of anything, like, but I know that if I go up and I hone myself, that I'm going to be better useful to everybody around me, and that things are going to come in a good way, full circle into that thing. And I like, that's what faith is like, I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice, man. I'm going to go ahead and jump off the cliffs and build my wings on the way down. Like, cause the fact is, at the end of the day, man, years ago I came to a place and I go, I'd rather be dead than be mediocre. Right. Now that ain't everybody, and I'm not like whatever anybody does, but that was what was true for me. Is like, you want to be some average basic motherfucker. If I could do that, I would. But there's a thing in me that has such a loathing for that I could never. I would never fucking. I just can't, man. Yeah, I gotta strive, and so that becomes the whole thing, I think. Anyways, I appreciate making time, dude. Where can people find you?
It was a good talk, man.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on all the social media shit. Slaine's World on Twitter, Slaine's World on Instagram, Slaine.official on Facebook. And,
killer.
You know, got new records coming out. Got a bunch of projects. Just tune into
What's the name of the new record?
Slaine is Dead is the EP.
Really?
Dropping an EP this fall, and also we're dropping a new Coka record called To Thine Own Self Be True.
I saw something about that, man.
Yeah.
Who spearheads that? You and Danny Boy?
It's Danny Boy, Ill Bill, and myself, and you know, Lethal is also a part of it too.
And Everlast has kind of dipped out of that whole project.
Yeah, he's dipped out. He had some other issues in life with his family and everything, and he's just doing his solo stuff. He's still a friend of all of us.
Yeah, we talked on Instagram the other day, man. It sounded like he's doing good. I look forward to seeing him when he's around again.
Yeah, man. You know, Everlast is a mentor of mine, and you know, like I said, a hero. I had pictures of him on my wall before I ever knew him. So.
Well, thanks, man. Have a great trip, and thanks for joining us, dude.
All right, Tait, thanks.